If you use Instagram, you may have noticed a change this week. The social media platform is conducting a test here in Canada, hiding the number of likes on photos and videos. So only the owner or the poster of the account will be able to see how many likes a post has received. Now, Instagram CEO Adam Mosseri explained the reasoning behind the change, saying, "We don't want Instagram to feel like a competition. We want to make it a less pressurized environment." Okay, so is this Canadian experiment good or bad for users of Instagram? Joining us to answer that question are three Instagram users and social media experts. From Toronto is BuzzFeed social media editor Elamine Abdel Mahmoud. Hello to you.
Hi.
And from Los Angeles is Ramona Pringle. Hello, Ramona.
Hi.
And she's the director of the Transmedia Zone at Ryerson University. And joining us from Vancouver, technology expert Graham Williams. Thank you to all three of you for being here with us.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. So, Elamine, I'm going to start with you. I want to start also first with us all listening to a clip from the Instagram CEO earlier this week. Let's quickly take a listen, and then I want you to weigh in.
We want people to worry a little bit less about how many likes they're getting on Instagram and spend a bit more time connecting with the people that they care about.
Okay, Elamine, are they really going to spend more time connecting with the people they care about?
No, I think that ship has kind of sailed a little bit. You know, Instagram's been around since 2011. It is the most popular platform of social media that there is out there, and it's in large part due to this sort of comparing yourself and your life to other people's lives. It's kind of a part of the Instagram culture at this point. And so I'm afraid that introducing this sort of experiment where you're not going to see the likes on other people's photos is not going to make you compare yourself to other people's lives a little bit less. I don't think so anyway. I think all that will happen is we'll find different ways of finding validation for the feeling that you're just like not enough, because that is what Instagram is ultimately built to do.
So, Ramona, I wanted to ask you, too, in terms of not being able to see that other people have liked the photo, but as the user, you can see how many likes you have. So they're not removing the likes from you, just from the other people who see it. So will that not still have an impact on how you yourself feel if it is in fact the case that you seek validation by how many likes you have?
You know, absolutely. Anecdotally, you hear stories about people who, especially young people, who rush and see how many likes there are on something, that if there aren't enough likes, they might even take it down. It is this very immediate form of gratification or lack of response when that happens to be the case. So the fact that you're still seeing how you sort of measure up, because we have this reality that we're comparing it to, where you used to know how many likes things would have gotten before, it feels like it's very much just a superficial, it's the gloss, it's the outside of what people can see. But as a user, you'll still see, you'll still get that kind of gratification of who's liking your post. It's maybe a little bit harder to dig into. You have to go through a few more layers. And the other interesting thing or piece of this that I think is worth noting is that the algorithms are still counting those clicks and likes and views as well.
Yes.
Right, so the analytics will still be available for those people who, of course, have made a livelihood off of their posts and how popular their posts are. Now, Graham, I wanted to ask you, because is it something that maybe the social media platform had to do or felt compelled to do? Because, for example, there was a recent report from UK's Royal Society for Public Health that was talking about youth mental health. There are some positives, they say, when it comes to feeling more connected, but also linking it to things like anxiety, depression, loneliness, and poor sleep quality. But to Elamine's point, is it too late now to put the genie back in the bottle to sort of address these issues, Graham?
I don't think it is too late to address these issues at this point, but I do think what's happening is that Facebook, by way of Instagram, is essentially conducting psychological experimentation on its users. This is really all about the dopamine response that people have when they're using Instagram. You get that like, you get that interaction, and you start to feel that connection with the content that you've created. Now, by removing the outward appearance of those numbers, they made it a little bit more palatable to people to, again, just have that content stay there, and you want to see as many people taking things down. I think it will remove some of the competitiveness there, but I do think that this is actually a means to an end. They are refining their process here. What they have noted is that they don't have likes on stories right now that people can see outwardly. It is actually more of a connection between the creator and their audience. So I think they're trying to move more towards that direction. It's interesting to see because at the same time on Facebook, they've actually started to roll out things like awards and achievements that are attached to your profile, which is a more visible sign of this. So you're seeing them progress in two different ways here. And like I said, this really does feel like a psychological experiment.
And you know, I saw both Ramona and Elamine sort of nodding with you when you said psychological experiment. So is it fair for these social media platforms to conduct these psychological experiments? And how much of it is actually an experiment or is business based? Because after all, these are huge money-making tools too. So maybe Ramona, I'll go to you, and then Elamine.
It's such an important point that you note that this is a business and ultimately everything is serving the bottom line. Even when we're talking about this right now, we're talking about it based on their announcement, based on a press release. So I think it's always worth being a little bit skeptical, taking it with a little bit of a grain of salt when we take these great announcements about why they're doing these things, saying that they're maybe doing it for the well-being of their users, for mental health, because of anxiety issues. You know, the flip side of all of this is that we also talk about a lack of transparency, of not knowing you know, sort of how the metrics are really being amalgamated or counted. Talking about, you know, just how much these things can be boosted and bolstered. There's so many issues that are facing Facebook and Instagram at this stage, and so they're sort of identifying one where they can have a hero moment, where they do need to, there's no doubt about it, take some steps to do good in the eyes of their users. But I think that there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes with this as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have to say, with this particular case, you think about Instagram as a giant business, and then you think, would that business ever do anything to harm its usership, to harm its, you know, the number of clicks that they get, the number of eyeballs that they draw? And the answer is no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do this if they weren't quite sure that this is actually going to result in more likes, not fewer. And I have to imagine also that at the end of all of this, they'll come back and say, like, this was all about user well-being. But I don't know if they'll release this data and make it public for us. And I think that's what we need to know. We need to know, how are people interacting with this content? I think there was a study out of the UK that ended up, I think the Information Office in the UK ended up recommending a 16-point plan, and one of them was actually removing likes for all kids, all children, all people under 18. So you wouldn't be able to view any likes whatsoever. Because the idea is, like, the like is a nudge technology. It keeps you kind of coming back to the platform, keeps you wanting to use it. It keeps you interested in checking your own metrics. So, like, if they were willing to, you know, take this sort of half step, why not go all the way and say, yeah, this is harming young people. Why not remove the like altogether?
And I guess young people is sort of a relative term because, you know, in some cases we're talking about it having that impact on the mental health of youth. But then, you know, there are young users, of course, who have adopted this, and this is now their job.
Right.
They grew up with these sorts of social media platforms. And so I'm wondering how damaging this will be to their livelihoods. And maybe, Graham, I'll go to you on that. I mean, how are those people reacting?
Well, I think this is actually the biggest thing to be concerned about. And when I did say psychological experiment, this is probably the most worrisome thing. When you do have young children who are growing up in this Instagram environment, in the Snapchat environment, and really, there is not a lot of expertise in this area. It does feel like they are flying by the seat of their pants here. You know, I hesitate to use the R word, but it does feel like either regulation or oversight is needed with these companies, because they don't actually know what they're doing, and they are experimenting, they're testing in production. So it does make me a little bit fearful for the generations that are coming into this at a young age.
I just say use the word regulation with gusto, like lean into it, because I think we're definitely at a point where that's needed.
And Ramona, what do you think about, you know, the other side of the argument that those people who are counting their metrics and their analytics in order to pay the rent, how damaging could this be to them? Do they have a case here to say, you know, I really don't think Instagram is thinking about people like me in trying to test out this new removing likes move?
Well, the thing about Instagram is, you know, not to use Facebook's own language, but it is just a platform. It relies on content creators. It relies on its users to create the content that generate the likes, that generate the, you know, impressions, that generate ad revenue. And so I think really, the influencers have a lot more power in all of this than we're really seeing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they will need to be happy because they're the ones who are generating content. They're the ones whose their livelihood is also the sort of, it serves the platform well. And so I think at the end of the day, you know, we talked about this a little bit earlier, that this is a business, and ultimately any decisions being made, even if they can benefit people's mental health, I think we'll also see them certainly not harming the business model.
Right.
But perhaps it's the most difficult business to regulate, because how really do you keep control of how people are feeling about what reactions they're receiving online? Elamine.
I mean, the one thing you can do is ask people, right? Like I don't think we've done enough surveying and studying and studies of the consequences of social media, of living this much in public in front of each other. Those studies, the ones that they've done that are large scale enough, they're just now starting to be published, and we're starting to see pretty serious consequences from the constant social media use. You mentioned earlier the depression and the anxiety. It's like, how many studies do we need? Is it like 30, 40, 50, 100? There's several years of studying this and seeing its impact affecting people in order for us to take action? Or are we saying, yeah, we're already seeing a trend line, and the trend line is not good, so we should take action now?
And final word I want from you, Graham. Do you think we'll see a pilot project like this also on Facebook?
I think we will see a pilot project like this on Facebook, but I think it's going to go in the other direction. I think Instagram and Facebook, they're going to run these things in parallel and try to see which way is going to benefit their audience the most. I think the Facebook approach is probably not the correct one. The Instagram approach is the one that I think is going to actually take off.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this discussion. And now I couldn't think of a better way to wrap this up than by taking an Instagram picture of all of you. So say cheese, guys.
Cheese.
Ready? There we go.
All right.
Thanks to our panelists.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys. That
Thank
was
you.
Elamine, Ramona, and Graham. Thank you.